I'm Joseph Newman. I'm sure you know what you're looking at. That's the energy machine I've spent my life on. Now, Dr. Swimmer has came and saw this machine, spoke out for the benefit of humanity. He's a top mathematician at Arizona State University. He's an emeritus. He's retired. He teaches only to the graduate students. Now, he is not speaking for the university. He's speaking for you, the people of the nation and the world. I want you to take very carefully what he's written for you so the world will know this technology works as I've been screaming out to you. James Clerk Maxwell, well over 100 years ago, had to come to the aid of Michael Faraday when he first said there was a connection between magnetism and electricity. Prior to that time, it was taught very rigidly there was no connection between magnetism and electricity. Faraday built a little tiny motor generator, and the Queen came to see it, and it was so little, she said, "What's that?" Now, Faraday was wise, and he made this statement: "What good is a newborn baby?" And the Queen immediately understood, and then she got, because of James Clerk Maxwell, who was a great mathematician, he took what Faraday had done mechanically and put in a mathematical form, so the rest of the scientific community then got behind Michael Faraday. Now, I hope that's what Dr. Swimmer is going to do for you, the people of the world. You haven't listened to me. You haven't listened to 40 scientists over 20 years. Now, Dr. Swimmer is a top mathematician. He's been to Europe, where they treated him like a king, where he took mathematics of the 1800s and showed that you can make a computer more effective. Now, listen to what his words are. Let's go to that now. Now, we've named this, at his suggestion, a name, the Big Eureka energy machine. On Friday, 12th of September, 2008, I had the privilege to witness the performance of inventor Newman's 7,500-pound prototype, affectionately named Big Eureka, of the latest version of his potentially world-changing energy machine. It was built with a 1,650-pound rotary running a 5-foot diameter flywheel mounted on a 3-inch diameter shaft. On Friday, Big Eureka was hooked up to drive a 375-pound positive displacement mud water pump. At full capacity, the pump is rated by its manufacturer to require a 10-horsepower, 7,460 watts input. Big Eureka's input was supplied by Variac, a variable transformer hooked up to a standard 110-volt household electrical plug. The Variac was then adjusted to reduce the 110-volt house current to 13 volts as measured by an ordinary fluke meter. With the flywheel turning at approximately 100 revolutions per minute, the amp meter was reading approximately 0.5 amps, so that the input wattage was 6.5 watts instead of 7,460 watts. And the pump was pumping water at approximately a rate of 1/3 gallon per second, 20 gallons a minute, 1,200 gallons an hour, and 28,800 gallons a day. Newman's energy machine utilizes voltage, not amperage, to achieve its remarkable power. It takes the form of a catalyst to trigger atom alignment within the mass of the machine's copper windings. Energy is transferred from one atom domain to another, thus providing both mechanical and electrical power. The machine does not produce heat when it runs and is non-polluting to the atmosphere. Contrary to ordinary electrical motors, as the size of Big Eureka increases, the less input power it uses to produce more output power. The small input power source for the Newman energy machine can be conventional electrical power, water power, solar power, wind power, or thermal power. Alvin Swimmer, PhD, Arizona State University. He's not speaking for the university. He's speaking for himself for the benefit of you, the people of the nation and the world, exactly as James Clerk Maxwell spoke out for Michael Faraday when he made the first motor generator. Now, those devices are highly ineffective. Now, let me show you what this means. If I take the graph that you'll compute from this machine that is running, now this graph shows you the power that this system will produce. Now now notice something, at 100 revolutions a minute, I'm certain we're going producing at least 2 horsepower, just being conservative. 2. Now you can't show me a motor made in the world, conventional motor, that'll produce 2 horsepower at 100 revolutions a minute of the rotating shaft of that motor. Not trying to use mechanical advantages, by the rotation shaft of the motor. It'll produce 2 horsepower, and it'll do it with 7 watts of power. 7 watts of power. If you take these numbers and then do what you're supposed to do, as you double up the speed, you don't just add it, you have to square it. And that's well known. That's mathematics that does not lie. And as we do this, look at the graph. You go from 2 to 4 at 200 revolutions. Now if you go to 400 revolutions, you got 16. Now if you go to 800, you got 256. Now you're talking about horsepower that we're talking about here. 1,600 revolutions a minute. Now it's 65,536 horsepower. Now watch how this climbs phenomenally when you go to 3,200. It goes to 4,294,967,296 horsepower. That is phenomenal. Now what it clearly shows anyone, most people don't understand what E equals MC square is. I have for over 20 years, well, I started on this in '65. I was screaming it then. This is converting mass into energy on a 100% conversion process. Now, most people that I've talked to in my life, I'm talking about technical people, they quote E equals MC squared, but they don't understand it. To me, it's very simple. That's the mass times the speed of light squared. I know what that means. So you can appreciate this graph. Let's take this 1,650-pound rotary that's in this machine. Instead of turning it up to 3,200, let's turn it up to 186,000 rotations per second. Getting somewhere close to the speed of light. Now you're talking about, because you're squaring this, that would give you a calculation from here to the sun. If you started running those numbers out, just like I'm doing here, and multiplying them out, it would run it from here to the sun. That's the power that you would have. So now let's start bringing it down from that phenomenal distance of calculations down to right here, to 4 billion, and that's at 3,200 revolutions per minute. And it's 4,294,967,296 horsepower that you're going to be producing. And these numbers don't lie. And the way you know this is simple. This is well established. Roger Hastings, who was a senior physicist for Sperry Univac and has betrayed me and went in business with Director of Mobil Oil on my technology, still hadn't mastered it, but this is standard that you can pull up on Florida. You can get this information. Speed is power. Speed is very important in a collision. If you double the speed of a car, you increase its force of impact 4 times. If you triple the speed, its impact is 9 times as great. And I've been stating, you've seen me show you this before. Accordingly, the Newman Energy machine produces unlimited speed, unlimited power. Now, I have told y'all that repeatedly. Dr. Swimmer says I am right. That machine screams to you that I'm right, just like it did for Dr. Swimmer when he come to see this. It was the first time he has seen that machine, and he was tremendously impressed. Now, this is from the Granger catalog to show y'all what I'm talking about. These motors I have spoke out against from the get-go. Way back in 1965, it was obvious to me, because I'm mechanical. All my life, I have funded myself solving other people's problems. That's what I have on my business card. It can't be done, it interests me. Now, these motors are made by idiots. And the reason I say this is very simple. You've heard me say this on many of my tapes I got up there. Stupid is when you got facts in front of you and you ignore it. Now notice something. Let's take this motor right here. This is from 1 horsepower to 200 horsepower. And the Granger catalog on the electrical motors sold to industry. It's the best they got. Now look at it. This thing weighs 2,185 pounds. It's probably got a rotor in it somewhere close to 1,000 pounds. Now they're running it at a speed of 3,565 revolutions a minute. But it doesn't get anywhere close to the numbers I just gave you. You know why? Because it's got iron throughout that machine, both in the rotor, the stator, everything in there is probably 90% of this motor is iron. Well, when I first started in this, it was obvious to me. They talk about in magnetics, as soon as you take iron, they have what they call losses, hysteresis losses. And they don't know what that is. They don't know how to explain it. They just call it hysteresis losses. And we have this, and it bothers us. To give you an idea how stupid they are, they say they got it solved by using laminations. Well, that's crap. Because see this little tiny motor right here that you got in your child's toy? Well, this little motor, you run it for about 2 minutes and then hold it, and you'll see that it's gotten hot. So does every other motor that you've ever touched in your life. Even this little motor. Now it draws 10 amps under load on a 12-volt battery. That's 120 watts. But the heat in a motor is the current squared. So as soon as you got 10 amps going to it, you square that, that's 100. So the heat is produced gets great. Now what happens was obvious to me. If you take your hands and you rub them together lightly, you don't feel much heat. But if you take your hands and put them together and start doing it like that, I mean in just a few seconds it'll get hot between both hands. Now what are you doing? You're making compression and you're pushing the atoms of your skin in opposite directions against one another, and it creates heat. Now you take iron, and they even tell you about iron as when you take and put current into it, it'll create a magnetic field, get the atoms aligned in that piece of iron, and now you're going to reverse the polarity real quick. Now 3,565 revolutions a minute, and that thing, depending on how many brakes they have on it, it can be anywhere from 2 to 20 brakes on it. It could easily be 120 reversals per second in that iron. Now as you're doing that, those atoms in the iron create heat, and they rub against each other as they twist over. Just like you create heat rubbing your hands. You can imagine atoms in iron that are very rigid. They do not move easily. Now in copper, it's the opposite. Copper's a soft material. The atoms, and I've always said it, they align and disalign at the speed of light with no hysteresis losses. That's why my motors do not get hot. None of them ever get hot. Why? Because I don't draw no current. It don't run off of current. It runs off of voltage. Hydraulic pressure aligns the atoms in that mass. Exactly as Dr. Swimmer tells you in this documentation that he just signed. This will change the world. These motors are not worth crap. I can go off and leave any one of them. Now I'm going to prove it to you. I'm showing you what the graph is. Look how this jumps up. And what it's clearly telling you is what E equals MC squared is. If you take a mass weighing 1,650 pounds, if you even slightly start getting it up to a speed relative to the speed of light, it'll change at one point and say, whoom, an output. And the reason is very simple. This goes back to what power even is. Work for a force time distance divided by time. All of that plays a part in it mathematically that tells you why mechanically this is. This ain't hearsay. You're seeing this machine do this. There ain't a machine in the world can do what I've done here except my technology. Now to show you this is true, watch the speed of this go up. Now this thing can turn all the way around to 120. I ain't got nothing to go into this. to give you an idea. That's going from 16 to 17 volts. Now remember, you got to 110 to 120 you can go to. Now this motor is still gaining speed. You can hear it. You can see the water, how much faster it's coming out. That's a 375-pound mud pump. You hear that speed still gaining? I'll go back there and check the RPM. That's 104 right now. And the RPM, you can see how that's going. Now I'm gonna turn it up a little bit faster. I don't want it to go too fast. I know I'll sling that copper and break those brushes. You can see how that water's pouring out of that thing now, and it's coming out with a tremendous velocity. And it's almost constant. And that thing's still gaining speed. Look at it. And that's probably 125 revolutions by now. And it's, again, we still ain't got no wattage going into this thing. We up to 2.5 amps. 2.5 amps now. But the voltage we got on it, is 22 volts. 22 volts. So 2.5, that's 44 watts of power. But this power has gone up by this graph. This power is going up tremendously. As we increase this from 100 to 200, it's going up to 4 horsepower. And you're seeing it by how that thing has increased so much. And the speed has increased so much. And to show you how much power this thing produces, it does all the time, watch what happens when I unplug this thing. Now I'm going to unplug it, and it'll still keep running. It still keeps pumping. And it does that the whole time this machine is running. And it's producing its own power right now. Running a 7,500 pound machine, 375 pound mud pump, pumping that water still with a great velocity. What he's telling you. And as James Clerk Maxwell got behind Faraday, I hope that what Dr. Swimmer's telling y'all, you will wake up and get behind this technology. He's telling you something very phenomenal. The bigger you make this machine, the more power it produces, and the less power you use, and that's an infinite relationship that will change the world. Of this nation and the world would send me what it takes to fill 1 tank of your car for gas. 1 tank full. I could mass produce this machine for the people of the nation and the world. The whole world did that. The people just of the United States did that. What you put in your car for 1 tank of gas and get behind this, we could start production of this. And in fact, God has shown me a building that I can get that costs billions of dollars, and I can buy it for $8 million right now and start it, and it's got massive cranes in it that'll build big machines. Now, you know what pollutes the earth? It's not running houses. It's running industry of the world. That's what pollutes the earth and the rivers and the air and the water and everything else. The bigger I make this machine, I can run their entire thing. Just like if you take this machine right here on this thing and you run it up, fix it, you know, you'd have to build a shaft big around as this if you wanted to start producing 4 billion horsepower. But you could still do it if you built it where it would be strong enough to hold together to the torque that you put on the shaft. Now we build massive things now when we have water and we make a dam, and they're massive. Man will look like a little toy standing beside the shaft of it. That's what I'm interested in building for the world, to run the earth, to do away with all pollution and the cost of everything from fertilizer to steel. The world is being bankrupt right now because of oil. They're making the biggest profits in the history of the world. Over 10 major banks have fallen. Other banks right now, while I'm talking to you, are on the verge of falling. We stand on the threshold of the greatest depression that's ever been in the history of the world. Thousands of jobs per month across the nation are being lost. The world should get behind this. I'm going to end this quickly because I have talked over and over to y'all. I could have sold this out for millions of dollars a long time ago. My life has been threatened. God has kept me alive only. It's time for you, the people, to stand up and speak for yourself. Pour the money in behind this and let's produce it. And I started a barbell company in 1962. I had to go out and create the market at the time. Nobody lifted weights in sports until I taught them to. But I designed all the equipment I used in that production, and I did it quickly. I just write it down on a piece of paper, carry it to the machine shop, and everything I'd build would work automatically. Everybody was amazed. I wasn't amazed. It just seemed like common sense to me. Well, that's what I can do in production. That's why Red Adair told Mike and Doug, who was a world-renowned firefighter, when he met me, he said, "You two boys know how to play football, and Joe knows how to work." Well, you know I do, because you just saw this machine, what it does. Now, you can call Joe Noffe, area code 205-835-9022. Tell him what you're willing to do. Now, you can send money to him. It's at 1241 Vista Lane, Birmingham, Alabama. I forgot what that zip is, but he'll put it on the tape where you can see it. And I thank y'all for watching this. Tell all your friends to watch it. But do that simple thing that I've asked you to do. Next time you put a tank of gas in your car, I want your conscience to hurt you if you don't send me that money. Because God gave me $10 million worth of publicity in the 80s and y'all turned it down. Well, you're suffering right now because you didn't get behind it. It's time for you to wake up and get behind it, because the power brokers are making the biggest profit in the world in their history, and they're bankrupting the world. And you're the guinea pigs that's getting hurt. They're not getting hurt. You're the guinea pigs. Get mad about it. I'm mad about it. You should be mad about it. Thank y'all very much.
And this little sign that you're seeing here that I'm holding up kind of tells the story that Joseph was just giving you. This huge machine is running on the power that little light bulb runs on. And it's pumping 30,000 gallons approximately of water a day. Think of what that could do for people that are in need of water, people in Africa, perhaps even people in the Midwest soon. And the water table seems to be going down, and we're going to need more water. We're going to need more energy. And it has the capability of pumping water from the sea. And it can be desalinized, because we've got all the energy we need. And who am I to say these things? Well, basically I'm nobody. But I've been in air conditioning for 25 years. I've worked with compressors and motors and circuits. I have a pretty good understanding of them. I can tell you this, Joseph Newman and his technology is real. It is real, real, real. And the only reason it hasn't come forward now is our indifference to it, the academic indifference to it. Because with every huge leap, quantum leap in knowledge and discovery, academia always fights it. From Copernicus to Einstein, they've fought it desperately, because I think it encroaches on their domain. They don't want to hear new things. Joseph's machine and his technology and his theses turns physics upside down, physics as we know it today. They don't want to hear it. But there's another power, a much stronger power that's been fighting him all these years, and that's what he referred to just a moment ago. It's a $6 trillion a year industry. It's the biggest industry this world has ever seen, and it's energy. And if you don't think there's an interlocking power that controls this, just look at your gasoline right now. It's down 60 cents, 70 cents from what it was a couple of months ago. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did it happen now? Could it be that we're having an election and the gasoline came down all over the world? Well, at least all over this country, maybe not all over the world, but all over this country. How did that happen? Think about that for a moment. He's been facing these same people. They've hurt him time and time again. They've put disinformation up there about him. They've discouraged people from supporting him. They've bribed people. They've threatened people. It is real. And all you have to do is look at the gasoline pump. 60, 70 cents came down. Whoa, nobody told us anything about this. We're just enjoying it, right? We should think about it. These are the people he's been fighting for you. And that's why this is still in a prototype form instead of something that could drive your city, could drive industry, could drive your car. It's real. Don't lay down and let the power brokers run right over us. As Joseph said, they're destroying the entire world's economy. And they're making huge, obscene profits in doing this. I just want to say that I don't understand why people haven't gotten behind Joseph. This is very real. Believe me, I've worked with this for 9 months now. That's all I want to say.